Hi, everyone. This is Miranda with the Valuable Voices podcast. I have Amanda Love here today, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear her story. Thanks for being on, Amanda.
Thanks for having me.
Yay. Well, yeah, let's dive right in. I know we got connected on a Facebook group, I think, and I know we're both podcasters. So, again, let's just dive into your story. Where you want to start?
My story. Okay, so my story started. I was born 6 weeks early, and right away, I tell people this. I was so sick constantly all the time with like sinus infections, sore throats, you name it. I had it. And I was never well. And then my health was bad. My parents were divorced when I was 6. My dad remarried. So there was all that stress going on with my life.
Yeah.
And I tell people this. And then eventually I completed high school. And after high school, I decided to go into personal training, did that for 6 months. But the thing I tell people is the biggest thing was right after I completed that program, turned 20, I actually all of a sudden I was so much pain. I was so fatigued. I was so exhausted. I didn't know what was going on. And I tell people that time in my life was very hard because you're like, well, why am I not able to do what a normal 20-year-old could do?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very hard. And I was actually went to one of the top rheumatology places in Mesa, Arizona. They said you have fibromyalgia, which we now hear about in in the news and stuff. But 11 years ago, you would not have heard about it. And they said the next two steps were physical therapy and medication. So that started the rabbit hole of
And
going
that
down.
was the first time you were really diagnosed. Other than that, it was just off and on sicknesses and no explanation.
No explanation. A lot of times they would say, "Oh, your work looks completely normal." I even did it like a CAT scan. Nothing showed up. Everything just looked normal,
Yeah.
and they didn't know.
Wow. Okay. That's hard. Yeah. Can't imagine. So then what? You get this diagnosis and now what, right?
It's like, yeah, it's so funny because what they did was they handed me a brochure telling me what fibromyalgia is. And then they said, well, and they still don't know what it is. But some new research is saying that it's probably an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
But um, they, the physical therapy I did was weights. I did swimming, and I always tell people it's interesting because 10 months before I had done that stuff, it's not. I tell people fibromyalgia is not like an overweight issue,
Uh-huh.
and I'm under 5'3". I'm small, and for me, I remember I would just come out crying. I was just crying all the time. I was in so much pain,
Hmm.
and the medication didn't do anything, so I didn't stay on it for very long, and I didn't go to the rheumatology place for very long, like maybe 2 months and stuff. Um, but right next to physical therapy was a pain management place.
Okay.
So we asked, because this is what you do when your health is in dire straits, is
Yeah.
you try everything. So we
Yeah.
asked the rheumatologist place, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure." And did a consultation. They said to my grandma, "Okay, she needs 3 treatments." I did 2 treatments out of the 3. And what they did is they took your blood sugar, I mean, not your blood sugar, your weight, your cholesterol, and what they did was you were in a hospital gown. And what they do with fibromyalgia is if you are they'll touch like your neck, your back, and there's like trigger points.
Hmm.
So if you're winching or you're in so much pain, like you have to have like 13 of the 18, and they might diagnose you with fibromyalgia, which is sort of not the greatest testing. or if you have fatigue, pain, or sleep, and it hasn't gone away, it's longer than 3 months, they might diagnose you with fibromyalgia.
Okay.
So what they did is they drew these circles on all the trigger points, and then what happened is you're laying face down and they shoot this huge, like, painful needle into your all those different trigger points. And I remember, like, 10 minutes, like, after that, they would have you sit up and then, of course, have the juice, have the cookies to raise it back up. But the thing was, I would come out and I would just bawl cry. I was so in pain. I was so frustrated, and I just didn't understand why I was in so much pain and so much dealing with so many health issues. And I had a younger sister, and wasn't dealing with any health issues. And
Wow.
she
Yeah.
was 2 years younger than me, and I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't I couldn't take showers. I couldn't, like, run errands. I couldn't go to church. I tell people, my sister was dating her boyfriend. Now she's married to him and they have a 2-year-old. And I couldn't do those normal activities. And
Right.
And that's, like, the biggest thing I tell people is, like, if you don't have your health,
Yeah.
then you really, really can't do what you're supposed to do in this world. You can't really be there for your family. You can't be there for your friends and stuff. And eventually, like 6 months later, my grandmother is, I always say she's pivotal in my story,
Yeah.
but she found a newspaper clipping said wellness talk by a wellness chiropractor. And she went to the talk. It was 10 minutes away. And he said, well, if your granddaughter has fibromyalgia, she's been very, very sick for a very long time. Didn't know my history, didn't know anything about me, just knew that I had been diagnosed with that. And I tell people, I worked with him for 8 months. So I did stool testing, I did saliva testing, I did food sensitivity testing, the chiropractic stuff that he did, like that type of stuff. There were some other things I can't remember, but the biggest thing I tell people is the food sensitivity found out I had 2 genes predisposed me to a gluten sensitivity, highest in his practice at his time.
Wow.
Both parents, one gene from both parents, a soy sensitivity, egg sensitivity, and dairy sensitivity. And they were all really, really high.
Did you know any of this before, or is this, like, brand new to you?
Yeah, this is brand new. And a lot of times I tell people, I think a lot of times we think gluten-free is, like, the big thing. But since it's being pushed so much right now in media, but I tell people it can stay in your body up to weeks, up to months. So you can't cheat.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing. People think they're eating healthy, and you're really not probably eating healthy. I thought I was eating healthy
Right.
before that. I mean, like, a lot of times we just think, oh, we're having our carbs, we're having our fruits and vegetables, we're having our protein, and there's probably some deeper food issues that you're probably eating that you don't even know you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. I mean, like I say, I've been off of those since July of 2011. So it's been 10 years. And for me, like, I did all that, but I tell people I worked on trauma issues. I worked on my mindset. I
Right.
just moved to Austin, Texas. So, like, that was a big stress. I had some relationship issues and stuff, boundaries, that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I tell people, like, your health is not just one thing.
Right.
It's like a whole journey, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's what you put in your body. It's getting outside, it's exercise, but it's also totally in your mind, right? And stress
It's
and
totally
trauma.
like,
And It's
It's
crazy.
like it's really like a total mindset thing of like, and I think a lot of people think the mindset thing is not important, and it's totally is, because you really, if you don't work on your mindset, then how are you supposed to do everything you're supposed to do in life? I
Yeah.
think we eat healthy, people think, oh, I'm eating good, or I'm taking the supplements, or I'm doing all this, but how is your relationships?
Right.
How's
Absolutely.
how's the trauma?
Yeah.
Have you dealt with that trauma?
Yeah. And so how did you shift your mindset? Again, I think sometimes some of us take our health for granted too, right? Like I hear your story and I'm just like, oh, like my heart hurts for you because it's like I can't imagine being in that much pain. I hate pain, and it's like, how
Yeah.
do you switch your mindset to say, how do you do that when you're in pain every day?
I think my mindset was, there's a purpose for why I'm going through this. Like I tell people this. Um, so I'm a Christian, so I think I just had this belief that God was going to get me through this. And I think if I didn't have that belief, I think that like maybe I would have given up. And I also have a drive in me to,
Yes.
so I think that's the big thing. You have to have the drive to get better, and you have to have family members who want you to get better too. I think a support system's big.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that support system, then you have to find someone who's going to give you that support.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you may have thought you had that in doctors, but then you found a different doctor and he did different testing. And, so it's like finding who you can trust as well. I think support is number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I
And
think
that purpose.
finding
I love
yeah,
that you said that.
I think finding who gets you and who could give you the right answers. It's not, I think a lot of times we give up and there's always an answer out there.
Yes.
You just have to keep looking, and sometimes it's not the easiest. And I think a lot of times with the doctors, we think the doctors know everything,
Yeah.
and you really need to go to like a someone who has actually gone through the issue,
Right.
but also could help you, and look at their credentials, but ask ask yourself, oh, are they focused on hormone health, or
Right.
are they focused on diabetes or fibromyalgia, whatever that health issue you're dealing with? Don't expect them to know, like, can help you with all your health issues.
Yeah.
You might have to go to a couple different people, and you might have to go to a trauma expert. You might have to go to a sleep expert. It's
Yes. Yes. And you said somebody gave you medication. It's like some are out there just to give you a pill. And it's like, but there's obviously an underlying, right? The trauma,
yeah, it's not,
stress,
yeah.
all of that you may have to deal with, right?
Right, I find it's very interesting when I talk to people. They're like, "Well, I've been on blank pill for," and a lot of times it's like 10 years, and I'm like, "Well, then how are you, and you still don't feel well? Why are you still taking that?" And a lot of times I think it's because the doctors have said take the pill, and people just don't do the research.
Right. Right. Well, good for you. So I know you have a podcast. Tell us about your podcast and what that looks like and how to find it.
Oh, yeah, so my podcast is called Fibromyalgia: Real Solutions with Amanda Love. So I've had guests, experts on the show, pelvic pain, trauma experts, mindset experts, and then I also have solo episodes talking about fibromyalgia and stuff. And I've shared my story in great detail on a couple episodes. So that's a great way just to get started. And
Yeah. And you're taking your story and you're inspiring others and you're giving people solutions. Imagine you've met a lot of people that are going through something similar to you that you've been able to help, right?
yeah, it's amazing that all the people I've helped, but also like the people I just meet, just interviewing for my podcast, and
Oh,
like,
right.
and then also and then I created a series called Stories of Hope,
Mm,
and this year, and it's amazing just having people tell their stories of, like, one guy that I just did an event with, he talked about, like, he actually grew up in the 90s and he got on drugs, and I mean, and he was on medication for ADHD, and he ended up going to a hospital, a mental hospital, and
wow.
he ended up saving a girl's life. And now he's doing mental health, and he's like 35 years old. So, I
Wow.
mean, there's just amazing stories, and you just have to realize you have an amazing story too.
Yes.
You need to take the action and share that story. And
Yeah.
you also got to take the action to getting well.
Yeah. And when you're in a tough, hard place, those stories of help, of hope, totally get you through it, right? I mean, there's nothing else to hold on to. So hearing those stories is definitely impacting those that are, maybe not quite where they want to be yet. So I love that. I also know you have an ebook, so I'll put the link here, but tell us where to find that as well and tell us about that.
Yeah, so I have an ebook. It's a free sleep guide, to get that deep, restful REM sleep and not feel like you've been hit by a truck, which I tell people feel like when a lot of times with fibromyalgia. It helps, and it also talks about like how to fall asleep, because we all have trouble falling
Yes.
asleep. And it's right on my homepage, and you sign up and you would get it right away.
Awesome. And that's AmandaEliseLove.com, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And where can everybody find your podcast? Is that on your website too? I didn't see that.
Actually, it isn't. That's
Okay.
something that I need to work on.
Yeah.
But it's on every single platform, iTunes,
Great.
Spoop, right, all of them. So you can easily find me
Great.
on any of them. And there's 80 something episodes.
That is amazing. I love that. Again, I just love, you're living your purpose, right? And yes, you may have had to go through some of the hard, but I just
Right.
know just in talking to you that you're inspiring others, you're giving people hope. And I just love that. I love seeing people do that because again, you kind of could take this fork in the road, right? And you could be positive and you could be inspiring and purpose, or you could be like depressed and all,
Yeah, I could really be with, I could totally be with my story. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Now, on a day-to-day basis, how are you compared to where you were maybe 10, 15 years ago?
oh yeah, this is a big question I always get. I say a 7 to 9.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
I tell people like I'm still working on my health, like, but I could run the errands, I could take the showers, I could do whatever I have to do in life. Like I mean, I tell people, so I still struggle a little with the hormones and the immune stuff, but it's not as much. Like I don't get sick as much, maybe every couple months.
Okay.
I think it's big, like that. I always tell people I was like a -0. Like I couldn't even get off the couch.
Wow.
Like I couldn't run errands. I couldn't, like, I have a 2-year-old niece. My sister's pregnant with her second. So I mean, like, I think about that. I just think about like I wouldn't have been able to run around, play. I've now started to volunteer with the babies at
Oh,
my church and stuff. So I'm going to be starting that in September. So I mean,
yeah.
you really, you have to take control of your health. I think a lot of times we think, well, we're getting older. I'm just going to slow down. I'm
Right.
not going to feel better. And everybody probably, and so I'm only 31, but I mean, like, I am so much better than I was at 21. And
Yeah.
that's what I think people need to realize. Just because you're older, you're getting older in age,
Right.
doesn't mean you have to like be stuck with your health.
Right. And it's a decision to do that every day, right? And to go forward and
It's a
upward rather than
decision,
down.
I think it's a decision you have to take priority of your health, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people, especially people with fibromyalgia, I think they wanna help do everything for everybody else,
Mm,
and it's like, you have to take the time for yourself. If that means cooking on the weekends, healthy meals, exercise,
yeah.
sleep,
Mm,
all of it. You have to prioritize it. You might have to write it down in a planner.
right.
And some things are gonna fall off,
Yeah.
or you're gonna have to cut them out,
Yeah.
like TV
Mm-hmm.
or social media, which I
Yeah.
feel like those things, how much time do we spend on those?
Yes.
If you're not like using, I mean, like, if you're not taking care of your health, right there, you could take those out of the picture,
Yeah.
because, I mean, like, I don't watch that much TV. It's because I'm, like, doing all the other stuff for
Yeah.
health,
Yeah.
because I think that's more important than watching 3 hours of Netflix,
Right.
which is boring.
Exactly. Right. Well, and no one's going to do it for you. So you have to take the ownership and do it for yourself. Right.
Right? You have to take the ownership, but that means you have to order some supplements to help you, or
Yeah.
get back on track. Just, I always tell people, track what you're doing so you know what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
like, a lot of times I think with supplements, we just take them and then we're like, well, how long have I been taking that?
Right. Or you're taking 5 or 6 new things and you're like, what's working? What isn't right?
I mean, that's why you hire someone to actually help you with that type of
Yeah.
thing. But I mean, like, you're on like 7, 10 supplements, and sometimes you were like, did I even take it that day?
Right.
Did I take it? And then you get a reorder for another month, and you're like, oh, I still have powder or pills to take. So
Yes. I love it. Well, again, Amanda, thank you so much. You guys look her up, check out her podcast, check out her book. I love what you're doing. Again, you're making an impact and just inspiring others. So I'm so grateful that you're choosing that path and not the opposite, and just that you have people and support in your life. So that's just beautiful. Thank you for being on and sharing your story with us.
thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, have a blessed day, everyone. Thanks for listening.